Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be all about Iblis' Surging Cascade, our new trial in the Sinister Dominion. In this video I'll be sharing my first ever clear of this battle on Expert difficulty, as well as on Master difficulty, where you get to use both Wind and Light Attuned Adventurers. So I'm starting off here with my clear of Expert. You can see that the battle begins, as do the other Sinister Dominion battles, with the Fallen Angel variant of the boss. So we're battling against Fallen Angel Uriel. He summons these water spheres which do a short range AoE, but then any that are left on the battlefield explode, and a cascade or waterfall showers the battlefield toward the end, dealing damage proportionate, I believe, to how many are left. So you try to get rid of a few of those, you survive, tank the hits, you're fine. And then we get into phase 2 here, where we have Iblis himself, along with his cloak as a demolishable part. I have to say, I love the theme of this battle as far as the musical motifs on the names of the attacks and the bats that Iblis will use as well. But from a mechanical standpoint, I wasn't quite as crazy about things. And one of the things that frustrated me a little bit was this Tidal Fantasia attack. It got to the point that I decided, let me just go ahead and use Midgard Swimmer 0, forget about putting Wind Res down on the boss. I'm just going to use it because that bat attack was kind of frustrating for me just to even see where the correct bat went. And fortunately in solo, your AI kind of walked toward the correct bat, but then I found myself, if I didn't have skills up, those bats seem to be quite tanky, so if you don't clear the correct bat in time, you can actually wipe from that attack. Now this attack I think is actually kind of cool. This is one of the ones I do enjoy from this fight, but especially on Master difficulty, which we'll see in a moment. But Iblis does a move, and then the bats kind of copy or mirror the move. Here with the Swelling Concerto, I transform into Big Knot because that does cause frostbite, but by being Big Knot, I am immune to it. And it makes me wonder about Gala Volk's viability for sure after playing through this because, well, you can get frostbite, but at least playing as Knot, I guess, maybe I just didn't notice how often you get bogged or frozen. I definitely saw it happen to my AI a couple times, but with not having dual resistances, didn't notice too much. But it's not like there's any resistance to frostbite that characters have anyway, so as far as I can tell, that one chaser attack, you just have to sort of absorb and tank it. Now this is an interesting move that also can result in a one-shot. You have to fly this bat into a portal, I believe, and it seems to be a little bit sensitive. Like, I've gotten greedy on that before, and the bat does not get sucked into that portal. If he's really close and not quite in the center, like, he will survive, and then you apparently wipe afterwards, so that's not great. It seems like Iblis has several of these moves, and more so on Master, that, you know, can kind of just end your run, which isn't a design that I'm crazy about, I have to admit, but just as far as the actual, like, smaller attacks that the bats are doing, like you saw the one there, there's Whirlpool Rondo coming up now, which also is an attack that I just think has a really sweet pattern to it. Although, to be fair, I think that you can overheal so easily on this with Formal Noel that, like, it's better to just tank through all of these purple attacks rather than try dodge them, and tank through in the interest of trying to damage the boss, afflict the boss. There's another wipe attack that happens. I'm not sure if we're going to see it on the Expert difficulty, but I definitely saw it on Master, where there are like 3 weak points you have to attack. Here we go. This is the one. And so Gala Knot or Midgard Swimmer 0 again are really good for this, but the damage check is very real. So there are several times when it feels like, you know, you can be doing really well, and then all of a sudden Iblis just like completely takes you out. I found it was a little bit harder to track for me than Yaldabaoth, who has a similar mechanic where if you don't kill some of the ads, you put yourself in danger of getting wiped. Once again, we have these bats here, and it took me a second to think about doing it, but then I realized, let me just transform and just deal with this, because I had no idea which one was the correct bat to attack. Overall, on Expert difficulty, I think that this is a pretty manageable fight, but I would imagine that some of the auto wipe attacks might make it difficult for auto battle to handle this or AI to handle this properly. It seemed like my AI were not helping me at all when it came to the bat attack in particular, so maybe there's ways to get around that, but as far as I could tell, they just seemed to sort of get stuck on that, and my lead didn't have great damage. So probably going to need to play around a little bit more to find a reliable auto setup. I saw some posted over on Taya's channel, so I'll share a link to that in the description. Taya is one of the best soloists in Dragalia Lost, especially when it comes to auto content. So if you've even been struggling with things like Trials of the Mighty, for example, he has a lot of good videos that may be able to help you, so I will link to that. And that might be where I start, to be honest, as far as getting an auto build, because for the expert difficulty, you do need to repeat it quite a bit to get all the materials to upgrade these worm prints. I also might check out co-op, have not done that yet, but you can see here expert was a comfortable 5-minute clear, 5:14, and not optimized, not with like super great characters, but admittedly a Gala, a collab character, and then 2 5-stars, so still pretty stacked. Gala Dragon, I have a Gertrumer 0 as well. Now Master I found to be a lot trickier, so it took me like 5 or 6 tries before I realized this, but apparently on Master you have to afflict the boss to tick down a number below the HP bar with the right affliction. Half the time you can only be affected by poison, the other half by stormlash, and then in phase 2 it's flashburn and paralysis. But you actually have to get the counter down to 0. I thought that you just had to keep it from hitting 4. So my approach to this was very flawed for like the first 5 runs, and I had no idea why I was continuing to wipe, because on expert that never happened to me. But apparently you have to actually get it down to 0, so you can tell by the fact that the boss is poisoned that we are in the poison phase, and there are actually 2 different icons, so the one in the middle there corresponds to poison, and after we get it down to 0 safely, the boss will switch eventually to being affected by stormlash. I think he'll do it here. There we go, melodic shift, but if I had not been at 0, then I would have wiped right there. And I think one of the big consternation points about this for me was I could not tell when the melodic shift was going to happen really, so I just kind of had to hope that I was spamming my afflictions fast enough. And you saw I took like quite a lot of damage as not there. I kind of got a little worried and backed off, but I actually think it's sort of fine. My main goal here is actually to just cause stormlash, because this team doesn't have a lot of stormlash in it. Eleanor is more than capable of handling the poison, but I need to make sure that Nada's getting enough poison, enough stormlash rather, off before the next melodic shift happens, otherwise I'm going to wipe. Now fortunately I do have Formal Hakim's shared skill, so yet another thing that made this a lot easier for me. Unfortunately, this was a bad decision on my part to not have Big Knot form for this, but luckily Mona there just kind of saved the day for me, because I think that also would have been a wipe. It is kind of a pet peeve of mine from a design standpoint of like things that just one-shot you. Even though you can try combat them, it feels like a lot of them are pretty tanky, like the checks are pretty high, and although I like some of the minor attacks, those major attacks are not my favorite. Now we do get a pretty decent transformation here as far as transforming there, so now we get to switch to the light element, and you can see I'm Rosarda now. In my experience, this tends to start on flashburn. I'm not sure if it's possible that it alternates, but I know that I need to focus all my efforts on flashburning the boss right here. And I've also experienced a couple times that this attack that can wipe again seems to happen. Now I actually kind of made a mistake here because I shapeshifted with Rosarda, so now I'm really worried that because I shapeshifted with Rosarda, how am I going to cause flashburn? Now for better or for worse, the bat attack happened right afterward, which allowed me to run out my dragon time, but it also made me kind of terrified that I wasn't going to be able to defeat these bats in time, and also just worried about when is the next melodic shift going to happen, because I really just could not tell if I was going to be able to get off enough flashburn stacks in time, considering that there were 2 moves the boss did where he couldn't be attacked, and you can see I'm just literally standing here tanking everything because my sole purpose right now is I have to flashburn the boss. Like, as long as I'm not getting knocked back by attacks and I can build up SP, that's what I'm going to try to do. I was pretty sure I was about to wipe right now, and fortunately I was able to clear the stacks there with flashburn before the melodic shift. So now in terms of paralysis world, it's a lot easier because multiple characters on my team cause paralysis, but flashburn is actually a very significant limitation. So looking it up, the only adventurers that cause flashburn right now are Irene, Rizarda, Ilia, Gala Audric, and Summer Shell, and Summer Cat Sith also causes flashburn, but it's a very small pool of adventurers, all of whom are high rarity, and one of whom is a Gala adventurer, so it doesn't seem like the best case scenario for free-to-play players or players trying to clear this with welfare units. I really think that we're due for some type of welfare flashburn unit. The same could be said of a lesser extent to Stormlash. We do have Humanoid Midgard Stormer, who I think can apply Stormlash with a good enough frequency to get the job done. But yeah, that is something that I can imagine being very frustrating. Like, if you don't have the right pieces for this, I think Master could literally be out of reach. Maybe there are other ways to get down the counter, or, you know, time your breaks or demolishes at the right time or something crazy like that, but it sounds like it's kind of out of reach from what I can see. Again, we have this attack, and luckily I have skills up this time because this has ended a few runs for me, just not being able to do enough DPS here, particularly on expert difficulty for me. But anyway, we're so close to defeating the boss that I think I decided to go for the KO here instead of getting the counter down to 0, which admittedly, when I was looking at the break damage, kind of a risky move, but it ended up paying off. Was able to defeat the boss before we got into the next melodic shift. And that was it for my first clear of Iblis on Master difficulty. And of course, earlier in the video, Expert difficulty as well. Was happy to get to use Eleonora in this. She definitely played a good role on my team, even though I didn't really main her or control her. Since Not was my main Stormlasher, I figured I had to pretty much play as her, but I thought this was a decent clear time for Master. I'm sure it's not too fast considering some of y'all out there probably speedrun pros at this by now. But anyway, this was my first experience. Let me know how it's been going for you in the comments below. But that is going to do it for today's video, everyone. So thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.